Hey, what's going on, everybody? Remember us? It's the Ringside Rundown Podcast, episode 49, brought to you by TWM.News. My name is Erik Vasquez, and joining me on the line is my podcasting partner in crime. Yes, that rhymes. She is Shay Hickson. Shay, what's going on, my friend?
Not much. It's been a hot minute. It's been a few
It's
weeks
been,
actually. It's weird.
yeah. We went on a little hiatus. We had a couple scheduling things going wrong, things just
Yeah.
not working out, technology just not working for us. you
No.
know we went through the gamut, but we're back.
They try to keep us down, but they can't. We're still here.
We're still here, and it's a perfect time to be back because there's so much happening in the wrestling world,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we
that's an understatement.
yeah, and we get to talk all about it today, so it's going to be fun. But what have you been up to these past couple weeks that we haven't been recording a podcast?
What have I been doing? When was the last show we had? Was it like the end of May, I think?
Yeah, it was like it was predictions for Double or Nothing.
Yeah, geez. So I guess the big thing is my birthday was the day after Double or Nothing. So there's
Happy
that.
birthday!
Thank you. I'm now 26 years old. So yeah.
Oh, you're still a baby.
You're just like, shut up. I don't want to hear it anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anything about anything less than 30.
Yeah, I got. I mean, I got. No, I mean, it feels like another day. So it's like whatever. What have I been doing? I mean, basically, working is something that's usually taking up most of my week. Yeah, I've been trying to get back into writing a little bit. I have a little something working for TWM. Hopefully, I'll have that done by the end of the week. I don't want to give it away, but yeah, other than that, just been enjoying the weather, hanging out with friends, going to our drag shows as we do. So I can't
Nice.
complain. How about you?
Nothing. I've been doing absolutely nothing. Nothing exciting in my world. Being unemployed is not grandiose in any form or fashion.
No, it is
But
not.
I have been here just maintaining, and I'm excited. Even though today's show is going to be kind of weird because it's not going to be our typical show.
No.
It's not going to be our typical format. It's going to be us talking about different things that have been happening in the wrestling world, more so on the news end and sort of behind the curtain. But a lot of it is not so nice, not so pretty, not so fun to talk about.
No, as I'm looking at this again, which we have to, I think we definitely should give a shout out to a Mike because we were kind of like worrying about this when we were figuring out when our next podcast was going to be because we're like, it's been 3 weeks. We missed two pay-per-views and everything that has happened in the last 3 weeks in wrestling, like recaps on shows wise. And so we're like, what do we do? What are we going to talk about? Do we just like forget that half of it even happened? And then Mike told us on Twitter, he gave us a great idea of, he's like, just forget the recaps because there's been plenty of newsworthy things to talk about that don't have to do with like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, anything. So I we owe this entire show to him because
Yes.
we would kind of not really be sure of what we're doing if it wasn't for him. So thank you, Mike. So
And he, along with everybody else that listens in, kind of we, like I always say, we have our usual kind of rat pack of friends
yes,
that
we do.
contribute to the show, and he is definitely one of them. And like you say, he deserves a massive shout out for kind of almost co-producing today's episode.
You really
uh
did.
and giving us a format to go through, because he's kind of tapped into what people want to hear and what people
Yeah.
want to listen to. So shout out to Mike, like you said. And like it's gonna be a different show for sure, but still fun in the same format that we usually do. We always bring the fun, so I
Yeah.
can't wait to get into it.
And honestly, shout out to like you said, our little like group of listeners, like consistent listeners, because they still continue to send questions in. We have plenty of questions to answer from the last few weeks that honestly are still pretty relevant. I was kind of looking through them in our production meeting really quick, and I really didn't see a question where I'm like, I don't really know if we should talk about it at this point, or I don't really know if that's going to work. They all were pretty relevant. I mean, even the ones that we're talking about, like Hell in a Cell matches, we could still talk about. So thank you to everybody who's still sending in questions, even though we, kind of were taken off the air for a few weeks out of really our control. But yeah, so thank you to everybody. So the first thing Mike brought up, which I feel like is probably, I think you would agree, probably the biggest, if not maybe the second biggest news that came out in the last few weeks, and that would be the whole Vince McMahon hush money settlement stuff.
Mm. I have to think that it is definitely a big. I think it's the biggest news story because it forces Vince McMahon out of his seat as CEO and chairman
Hmm.
of the WWE.
Yeah.
Um, which is something that we didn't think was ever going to happen. And then the fact that it happened under the circumstances of he paid $3 million of hush money to have this secret affair with a paralegal that was an employee of the WWE. That is a big distinction because
Yeah.
most of what we've heard was former employee, but you have to really dig in deep to read the article in the Wall Street Journal that states that this person was a paralegal, because I've already seen dirt sheet and horrible quote unquote news wrestling
Hmm.
sites reporting that it was former wrestlers and things of
No,
that nature. No, it was a former paralegal that Vince McMahon had a secret affair with,
which
and
doesn't surprise me.
and apparently um John Laurinaitis was in on this too, and
Hmm.
he secretly had also an affair with the same person, which is just this is just crazy to me. Um,
Yeah.
that a billionaire conducts this way, so it leads to now Stephanie McMahon, who was going to leave the company for a little bit. She was going to go on her own hiatus.
Hmm.
Comes back and is forced back
Yeah.
and now is the CEO of the WWE. This is just crazy. What were your first impressions when you were learning about all of this?
It's kind of sad actually because when I heard about it, I wasn't really surprised because if you kind of look back at Vince's history, not even inside the ring, outside of it, and just even the decisions he's made creative wise, none of this should surprise anybody, honestly.
Hmm.
It's just I didn't think he would actually step down, except it didn't really seem like it was going to make much of a difference because it sounded like he was literally nothing was changing except he was just stepping down. So
There
that
were
was
people saying at SmackDown he was his usual jovial self, making jokes
yeah.
and acting like nothing is wrong. Um,
Yeah.
when us common folk, we would be hitting the panic button.
Yeah, I think I think it's tough because I feel like how do I want to word this? It almost feels like he just thinks he's going to get away with it
Hmm.
because I mean if you go back to those steroid trials, everybody thought he was just dead in the water. This was going to destroy the WWE, and yet somehow he wiggled his way out of it and
Hmm.
got off basically scot free. So he probably thinks that, oh, well, I'm Vince McMahon and this isn't going to really do anything to me and whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised if Laurinaitis is kind of the scapegoat in all this. Like, I would not be
Yeah,
surprised if at some point he's gone. Within, hell, even the next week, he's probably going to be gone. But I think they did say, too, it wasn't even just Vince and Laurinaitis. They said there were several settlements like this. They just couldn't talk about it. They only really talked about Vince's and mentioned Laurinaitis's, but obviously went more into detail with Vince's. But it's like, it is just, it's crazy what millionaires and billionaires think they can get away with just because they have money, and
yeah,
not always the case.
yeah. I mean, it just blows my mind. And then one thing you wonder, okay, is he's stepping down as CEO? Is he going to step away completely while they go throughout this investigation? Because there is an ongoing investigation. So
Yeah,
the point
probably not.
is, I don't know if he is going to step away or not, because again, you wonder, okay, well, does this mean things are going to change creatively, or are we going to get a different product?
No,
Um,
I don't think so. I think if I remember hearing, trying to remember where it might have been Sean Ross Sapp, it might have been Cage Side Seats. I don't really remember. All I remember hearing was that it really wasn't going to change anything. He was still going to be in control creatively, which I don't know how. Like, how can somebody just step away from their position and still lose nothing? Essentially, it's just it's mind blowing. And then to have him go out there on Friday on SmackDown,
mhm.
like, first, when I first heard that he was gonna be on, the show, I was at work, and a couple of my coworkers, are wrestling fans as well, and one of them had, like, messaged me and said, "Hey, you see Vince is gonna be on SmackDown tonight," and I couldn't help but laugh because of course he would. Because
Yes.
I was expecting, okay, well, it's gonna be Mr. McMahon, the character. He's gonna go out there and just cut this like heelish promo just for ratings and money and whatever, because the man does not have a moral bone in his body anymore. But then what was I doing Friday? Something I had friend was in town Friday, so I didn't really get to watch it, but I did hear that essentially it was a waste of the first, I don't know, 5-10 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I watched it, which I probably would have DVR'd it, but I
Mhm.
figured once I saw that he was going to be on the show, I was like, well, I gotta watch it now because this is a train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
like you said, when they announced that he was going to be on the show, I was like, one, this is the dumbest thing you could possibly do when there's
Yeah.
an ongoing investigation of you using $3 million of hush money to
Mhm.
pay off a person to be quiet. That so going on national TV is probably the dumbest thing you could do.
Yeah.
But of course he's gonna do it.
Yeah, because it's Vince McMahon, and I didn't, like I said, I watched maybe a minute or two of it because I just didn't really care. But the fact that there were people actually legitimately cheering for him, why?
Yes, it was so weird.
It's like, what is it with you? These are probably the same people who turn right around and just blast this man on Twitter. And as soon as he is in the same arena that they are in, they will be the people bowing to him and cheering him and singing along to the song. And it's just like, oh, remember when Daniel Bryan said all those years ago that the fans are fickle?
Yeah.
Some of them really are. It's yeah. I would not be
It's
cheering for him right now.
yeah, it's just so bad. But again, like I said, if he steps down as CEO and chairperson of the WWE, I was always wondering, well, does this change anything creatively? And
Yeah.
it looks like it doesn't, because they said that he tore up the entire script for Friday's show, reread it, and we get the ending that involves Brock Lesnar coming back to the WWE.
Yeah.
And a
Crazy.
major announcement: we're going to see Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship once again for the millionth time. I know you're excited about that.
Oh yeah. Love it. Loving it.
Why do you think they keep bringing Lesnar back for these situations? Because I mean, it almost seems like we're not alone in the sentiment when we
Thank
think of
God.
Brock. When we think of Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, it's like again. And we're not alone in that sentiment, because everybody else on the internet is like, "Oh my God, this again! You can't think of anything else to do. You can't
Yeah.
bring up anybody else." I mean, it was smart of them to do the whole thing with Riddle. It
Mhm.
was great for them to do the thing with Riddle, in my honest opinion, because
Yeah.
it felt a little bit fresh. But
Mhm.
then they it's like one step forward, two steps back. They go with
Absolutely.
Riddle, and then they can't do anything else because they can't build up Cody because he's on the shelf for 9 months.
Yeah.
Randy Orton's on the shelf for the rest of the year. He's not going to be coming back, and they already said once Riddle loses to Roman on SmackDown, he can no longer challenge for the championship. So they can't even build up a star in Riddle. And so they bring back Brock Lesnar, and it's like, what are you doing?
Um, I feel like it's like with WWE, as it always is a mix of things. Number one, kind of. you kind of spelled it out a little bit already. They almost refuse to try and build up anybody else that isn't already in the upper card to begin with. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, Riddle would have been Cody, but he's hurt. Orton could have been him, but he's hurt. Who else do you have that people could be like, oh yeah, I really want to see that? You really don't. There's
Yeah,
very few and far in between, basically.
maybe
So
Bobby Lashley. I'm thinking like off the
that or
top of my
like
head.
maybe McIntyre, but again, it's just you have McIntyre with like the New Day, I think, if they're still doing that, I think. I'm pretty sure they are, but either way, is you just keep going back to the same old reliable, which then kind of plays into my second point. Everybody loved at first. That's the operative phrase at first, the whole Roman versus Lesnar thing, because it was booked near flawlessly. I mean, there wasn't really a whole lot to complain about, honestly, but the problem is WWE has a terrible habit of running things into the ground and then through the ground and through the ground some more. So they saw, oh, it worked the first 20 times, so what's another 25 more? And the fans are like, okay, well, yeah, it was good for a little bit, but you keep showing us the same stuff. It's not going to be as good anymore because you can only freshen up the same thing so often, and
Hmm.
it's overkill. I think that's the easiest way to put it. It's overkill. And kind of also plays into WWE loves to think of all their part timers as draws every time.
Hmm.
That's why they probably keep bringing Goldberg back because they keep thinking it's a draw, even though he's clearly not been a draw for years. And Lesnar, it's like, okay, but if you're going to keep bringing him back against Roman, it's not that big of a draw either because we've seen this. It dominated most of last year
Yeah, it really did. It
and going
really
into
did.
this year. So it's like, what else they probably and they book themselves into a corner all the time. Like you said, Riddle can't challenge for the title anymore. Well, there goes one of your top contenders right there. You booked yourselves into a corner with that. So
It
there's
almost feels like it's the same thing that we talk about with the women's division, how thin they are.
yeah.
It's almost the same thing. It's like they're running out of people to build up into a new star to try to have a competent storyline with Roman Reigns. I mean, they had it with Cody Rhodes. I thought I
Mhm.
don't know if they were going to go with Cody Rhodes. I'm not an insider like that, but
I feel like they
uh,
probably would have
I mean,
eventually.
it would have been smart to capitalize it because the guy was just it was just boom boom. They were booking him like a star. He was
Hmm.
coming out. He was presented like a star, and then it made sense. And then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
It's just like where do you go from here? And then you not only that, but it almost feels like. I mean, his defense against Riddle was his first defense since winning the title at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so it's almost like, do they even care that we should see? I mean, I know you don't want to milk it until it's nothing left, but we should definitely be seeing Roman Reigns at least competing in the ring a lot more than we have been.
Yeah. Like he is only your undisputed title holder. You think you might want that belt around more often than not. So
And so if it goes to Brock Lesnar, let's say Brock Lesnar wins at SummerSlam,
yeah.
it's going to be more the same. We won't even see the belt.
Well, and then the thing is too, I don't remember. I think it was what we were talking about in the TWM chat, if I remember correctly. I think people are kind of forgetting that Clash at the Castle. I think's that what it's called, that like pay per view, and I think
Right.
it's. I'm pretty sure after SummerSlam.
Mm.
Do you really think they're gonna have Lesnar winning the title at SummerSlam to defend it at Clash at the Castle, their first big pay per view in the UK in how many years? No, they're gonna have Roman. So it's like, why do you even do this? Because you almost know that Roman's gonna win.
Mm.
What was the point? What was the point out of all of it? I don't get it. I don't understand it, but how many times have we said that before? It's just they shoot themselves in the foot constantly and they never learn from their mistakes because how many times have we said this over these, oh, I don't know, 49 episodes? They just love to back themselves into a corner and then can't help but wonder why people are frustrated.
Yes, yes. But what's next on the docket for us to talk about?
Well, since we talked about the biggest story coming out of WWE the last few weeks. Let's talk about the second biggest, which is supposedly Sasha Banks is gone from WWE.
Yes, yikes.
Except the funny thing is, no one seems to really know if that's true or not because it was, if I remember correctly, it was. I don't want to butcher the name, but I can't help it. It's Raj Giri. I think that's how you say his name.
Right.
He was the one that first reported it, but then Sean Ross Sapp couldn't confirm it, but he also wouldn't deny that his sources were wrong. So no one seems to really know, and it sounds like everybody's kind of in the dark about it. And if it actually did happen or is happening, it's being very quiet and closely guarded about it. So if that's the case, though, that is massive. Like that's a big deal.
Yes, I can't say I was surprised
Me
because
neither.
I feel like as much as good as Sasha is, like I hate to be the one to be like I don't want
No,
to say she's I don't want to say she's a complainer,
yeah.
but she's almost like a shit starter.
I was I was gonna say something along the lines of, well, I wasn't gonna say any like adjectives about it, but I was gonna say she's done this before. This is
She's done this before, you know?
so yeah, because I think a lot of people were wondering, well, if she's getting released, why isn't Naomi getting released? She did the same thing. Naomi is not a repeat offender when it comes to these kind of instances. Sasha is.
And
So
I feel like honestly it was one of those things where Sasha dragged Naomi down to her level.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, oh, yeah. It's funny you bring that up because mom and I were talking about that a few days ago, I think. It's tough because obviously Sasha clearly has gripes with WWE because I mean, and it's so tough because again, it's all hypothetical because we don't know if she actually got released or not, but it sounded like she is. But either way, you can kind of see to a degree from Sasha's point of view where she's coming from because she is easily one of the biggest stars in that division, bar none. Hell, even one of the biggest stars in the company in general. And you see the way the tag team titles, the same titles that she and Bailey both fought for tooth and nail for
Mm,
God knows how long, to see it just get brought completely back into obscurity, and then to see the women's division as a whole just consistently taking steps back, I could see where she's coming from. Did
mhm,
she do it, or did she go about this in the best way possible? No. But then you look at Naomi. Naomi kind of has a gripe too because she has been underutilized for years. How many
mhm,
times has this woman trended on Twitter because a lot of people are thinking she's being underutilized, which she is. It's there's no there's no bones about it. This woman has been underutilized for quite some time and clearly it doesn't seem like it's going to change. So I feel like it wasn't really going to take a lot of convincing on Sasha's part to get Naomi to, go along with this or whatever, however you want to word it. It
right.
wasn't going to really take much convincing. Um, so I'm not really surprised, but I do feel bad because I can easily see WWE being very petty with Naomi if Sasha's actually gone because you're the other one that walked out, but you're still here. So I could easily see them making her life a living hell until her contract is up, which is ridiculous. It's like maybe just book them better. That's such a
Yeah.
hard concept to understand, apparently. But yeah,
Well, and it's funny that you brought up the titles because remember, I think it was your mom who asked, who do we think is going to be the winners of unforeseen tournament that they're going to
yeah,
have for these titles, and I said no one because there's not going to be a tournament, and
and
lo and behold,
look what happened.
there's no plans for a tournament. From what I've read online,
Hmm.
the tournament idea is dead in the water, as they say.
I can't
Uh,
imagine because there's no teams. like,
yeah, there's no teams. There's nothing.
the
There's,
literally the only team I can think of would be Shayna and Natty. That's it. That is literally it. And I mean, obviously I would be happy because Shayna would have gold again, but not the gold I want. But again,
right.
it's like, what? Okay, you give them the titles, then what? Who are you going to throw together to make some makeshift team to believably challenge them for maybe one pay per view, and then you don't care anymore? Like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And because when mom and I were talking about it, I said, it must have really been, if this was the case, obviously, if it was the case of them uh releasing her, they would have had to think that she just wasn't worth the trouble anymore, because when they got suspended without pay, a lot of people assumed that, oh, well, they're just going to suspend them for God knows how long because they don't want AEW to pick them up. If it has gotten to the point where they don't even care if she goes somewhere else, that's kind of a big deal, I think.
That's my fear, is that she goes somewhere else, she goes to AEW, and she's just going to be like, well, look at what I've done over there.
Yeah.
No one can tell me any different. I shouldn't be losing. I shouldn't be,
No.
I feel like she could be one of, and it's a horrible judgment of character, but
Yeah.
it's all we've seen is just
Hmm.
like the constant complaining of not getting your way, not being put in the spotlight, not
Yeah.
having the biggest spotlight,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of like, I know there's a certain subsect of Sasha fans that'll probably listen to this and they'll be like, how dare you?
We're canceled.
Yeah, we're definitely in trouble taking a stance against Sasha Banks, and it's just like, it just bums me out, because at one
Yeah.
point Sasha Banks was like one of my favorites to watch.
Yeah, and okay, here I'll bring this kind of phrase up because I will definitely be bringing it up during our next little segment here. Sasha Banks, the performer, fantastic. Easily one of the best of
Mhm.
our generation, bar none. I love Sasha Banks, the performer. From what I've at least seen, and that's all you can say because you can't, well, I personally know her, so I know that this is actually how she acts. We don't. We don't know how Mercedes is, not Sasha. So we don't
Mhm.
know how the real life Mercedes actually acts. So I can't make any generalizations, but from what we've seen, almost kind of believing your own hype kind of thing, a little too much.
Right, right, right.
So it's tough because, like you said, I like NXT Sasha. I absolutely loved NXT Sasha. Like the original, like the boss, fantastic. One of my like favorite memories of years ago was when they first started touring on NXT and seeing her and Becky Lynch wrestle. Like that was a highlight of that, like my year. But yeah, as it goes on, it's almost just like I'm sure there's plenty of other women in the company that are, I'm sure there's not a single one of them that aren't upset about something right now, but they're not going to take their ball and go home because it's like, what good's that going to do for you? You go somewhere else, you're going to immediately be labeled as the difficult one.
Hmm. And it's so weird. Like I keep saying, us common folk, but it's
Yeah.
just so weird because we can't. It's not like we could do the same thing at our job if we're dissatisfied.
No, no,
The only,
no.
the only thing is, you could voice your opinion, and then if they tell you to f off, then yeah, you go f off and do your job.
Yeah.
It's just like I guess when you get to a certain stature, you
Hmm.
you feel invincible,
Yeah.
and it's no different from Vince McMahon, no different Sasha Banks.
Hmm.
Like you said, they believe their own hype.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, what's next for Sasha? I don't know, because like I said, if her going to AEW, because that's the other big ticket in town. Other people said maybe Japan or something like that.
Yeah.
But my
Stardom.
my yeah, my thing is she going to believe her own hype too much to the point where she's not going to be able to be worked with in these other
Yeah.
companies that definitely have different agendas and different productions from WWE? They don't work the same. They work at a different scale, a different pace. So
Yeah.
is she going to be able to work a different scale, a different pace, and maybe not necessarily have things go her way all the time?
Well, and then on top of that are the companies that may sign her believe her own hype too much as well. And oh, well, we absolutely have to have her, and you completely forget about all the other women you have on your roster currently that are still trying
Mm-hmm.
to get TV time and meaningful storylines and whatnot. So yeah, it kind of just goes back to, is her reputation going to precede her in a bad way? Because kind of goes back to what you were saying about like our real life jobs. If you have a job and you just are disgruntled about it, after a while, and then you just make this big scene and you just throw a fit and you just storm out of the office. You don't think, I mean, I think everybody listening to this, I would think, has gone through this before. Obviously, when you get a job interview and they ask for references and you're just going to throw your old job on there, like, oh, yeah, it's no big deal because that's where I worked last. Or even if you don't put the references, these companies still search you. They still look up where you worked. They're going to find who you worked for. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't think they talk to them? What was this person like? Do you really think if you're going to throw that hissy fit and storm out, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, they were a great employee, loved having them, they loved being here? No. And then you're going to wonder why you don't get the job. You have to always, even if you're upset, not become a total diva about it,
Mm-hmm.
because you do have a bit of a reputation, regardless of like your personal reputation, your professional reputation, whatever. I don't know if that's going to affect her. And it's one of those too where we've seen it before. Does the in-ring talent overshadow the negative reputation or vice versa?
Hmm.
I don't know.
That's a very open-ended question there, you know?
Right? And we may have to answer that in a few months. Who knows? But
It all depends on what's next. On what's
yeah.
next, because WWE could definitely just bite the bullet and say, okay, she's been suspended. They pulled the merch,
Yeah, there's
which
no
is a
merch right now.
big thing.
Yeah.
You know, they pulling the merch is a big deal. I don't think
Hmm.
people understand how much of a big deal that is.
Yeah,
But it is
because you
it's a
don't.
big deal.
Yeah, because the performers and the talent get a percentage of that merch. And if you're not already wrestling, you're not getting your paycheck to begin with, and it'd be like, oh, at least I have my merch. I can make money off of that. There's no merch either. They're literally just sitting there with whatever they've saved up over how many years. There is no money for coming in for them, at least from WWE. Other
Mm,
places, who knows? But WWE, you have no paycheck right now. And
yeah, she
you got to hit them where it hurts, apparently, and sometimes that's the wallet.
man, tough to be Sasha Banks right now in terms of money wise.
Yeah, I know. She's probably really suffering right now with
Suffering. Oh,
all of
just
that.
my heart
Yeah.
goes out to her.
Right, honestly. It's crazy. It was just kind of crazy that this was all kind of like, I mean, especially the Vincent like Sasha stories. Those broke within like what, a day or two of each other.
Yeah, it was just one thing after another.
Yeah, it was like and even before that, there was stuff going on even before those two stories got that news got broke. Like, oh, I don't know, Jeff Hardy getting arrested for another DUI.
Yeah, that's disheartening to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude just doesn't learn from his mistakes.
No, and it's so tough because I think everyone is very quick to just like, well, it's so that's so stupid of him. How could he do this and that and whatever? I feel like the easiest way to put it is if you don't suffer from addiction, it's very hard to be like, well, I can't believe he would do this because you don't know what he's going through. I could only imagine how bad that could be,
Hmm.
because you could be doing fine for years and just one thing is all it takes to just derail any progress you've ever made. It's um it's heartbreaking, like you said, disheartening, absolutely, because it's it's that phrase that I said earlier. Jeff Hardy, the in-ring performer, one of my favorites, if not my favorite, like male wrestler of all time, bar none. Jeff
Hmm.
Hardy, the person, you can't help but feel sorry for, because he clearly needs help, and it's just he can't seem to shake those demons, and it's just obviously as just wrestling fans and like Jeff Hardy fans or whatever, some people, like I said, it's very easy for them and quick for them to just be like, well, I can't believe it. How dare he? And just be super judgmental. But at the end of the day, I think you kind of have to realize, like I said before, if you don't deal with addiction or don't have a family member that has dealt with addiction, you can't really say anything because you don't really know what goes on.
Yeah. And just like uh, Booker T said on his podcast, something that I thought was very interesting. That at first you're probably like, "Huh?" But the more you think about it, you got to put it in perspective. It says does AEW have some sort of responsibility to bear in all of this? Because ever since he's gone to AEW, it's just been death defying move after death defying move that this guy has to be in an immense amount of pain. Um,
Yeah.
all of these bumps tend to add up,
Mhm.
and we all know wrestlers have that type of mentality where if there's pain involved, some are susceptible, not really these days, but definitely in the era of Jeff Hardy.
Mhm.
Um, his era of wrestlers, they were susceptible to using pain pills and alcohol, and
Yeah.
those really do damage to the body. And so, like, you wonder if all of these bumps that Jeff Hardy's taking are just adding on and adding on, and he has no alleviation from the pain.
On top
It's
of the most recent pay-per-view was in, of all places, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, which is not the most moral places to be when you have a problem with addictions and things like that. It's
Yeah.
not the best place to be. So it, and the video wasn't good either.
No.
Of course
No.
that comes out, and that just wasn't good to watch. That I'm just watching it and I'm going, Jesus Christ, they got guns pulled out on him. he
Mhm.
clearly he clearly was out of it. He didn't know where he was.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's just not good, and you can
Mhm.
only hope that he figures it out, because from what I remember reading, before he was released from WWE, the reason that they released him is because they offered to get him help and he just wouldn't take it.
Yeah. Well, and then yeah, and then it's tough because then you turn right around and AEW basically put their foot down and didn't give him a choice. They said you're suspended until you go through with it, and he said yes. So, I mean,
So shout out to them for not like being complacent
yeah.
and
Yeah.
just trying to placate Jeff Hardy. They
Mhm.
put their foot down, like you said, and said you need to get help and you can't come back until you do get help.
Yeah.
So hopefully he does. Hopefully he does get help. And man,
Yeah.
you just think about some of the wrestlers from before, the Scott Halls, the
Mhm.
Jake Roberts, and you just hope that Jeff Hardy doesn't go down that path.
I really hope not. And it's it's a shame too because I don't know if you heard this, but I had heard that the Hardys were going to get a run with the titles,
Hmm.
and and it was weird though because it kind of seemed like it was one or two different instances though. It was the match of Double or Nothing changed the plans, or him getting arrested changed the plans. So no one really knows what entirely changed the fact that they were going to have the titles. Now they're not, but it's just it's it's a shame, and shame on those people that are accusing Matt and his wife for enabling him because you don't know the whole. Again, it's like you guys, unless you are firsthand experiencing what's going on, you really have no room to say anything.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
No, so like you said, you just hope he gets the help he needs and you hope he can stay on the straight and narrow because you don't want another instance, like you said, of Jake Roberts or God forbid of Scott Hall. You don't want to see that happen again because it's happened so many times before. And
Hmm.
the least you can do is just be empathetic towards him because what good is it going to be just again judging people for something that you don't have firsthand experience with? And if you
Yeah.
do, it's still not your family member. It's still
Hmm.
not somebody you know. So it's just you kind of have to you just hope that things get better because there's really no other alternative to it because the other alternative is very bad.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, Jeff Hardy still comes from that era of wrestlers. He was around, when popping somas was the
Mhm.
normal thing to do in the WWE.
Exactly.
Nowadays it's not. I don't think it's that way anymore because
No.
you see a lot of guys that are into their physical fitness,
Yeah.
into their health, and things like CrossFit and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
you don't see that much of that, but the era of Jeff Hardy, what he's used to, is definitely the alcohol, the pain pills, and the
Yep.
things of that nature. And I like it's funny you brought up Las Vegas because I'm just wondering because that double or nothing match was it me or was that just weird?
It was weird because he got, from what I remember, I think he had gotten concussed early on in the match, and so they basically had to just talk him through the entire thing. And it
Jesus.
kind of goes back to what you were saying, where it's like you're kind of making the Hardys pull out their greatest hits for, I don't know, nostalgia's sake, I guess, because, oh, well,
Hmm.
WWE couldn't let them do this, but this is what everyone loved the Hardys for. And it's like, okay, but they're not 20s anymore. They're not in their 30s anymore. They're up there now and shouldn't be doing the stuff they're doing. You shouldn't be jumping off a scaffolding onto a bunch of boxes and tables. You shouldn't have someone be landing on you onto a pile of chairs. You shouldn't be doing that as old as they are.
And I don't know if you caught the match between the Young Bucks and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, that ladder match, but there
Ooh.
was a lot of crazy spots in that match. Could you imagine if the Hardys were involved like originally planned?
Yeah, could you have imagined if instead of Luchasaurus falling off the ladder on all those tables, it was Jeff? Like,
Yeah,
God,
exactly.
it's like, come on. We get what that's what they're famous for, but they actually can wrestle instead of doing all of those crazy bumps. It's like enough already.
Yeah, I would really hope that they consider maybe taking a lighter schedule.
Yeah, yeah, I think they could use it because, like we said, they're not the young guys anymore. They need more time to heal and rest up. But again, they shouldn't continuously be put. Even if it's just a lighter schedule, they still shouldn't be put in these positions every even a few weeks where they're jumping off these ladders or getting thrown onto the steel steps head first or whatever. They shouldn't be doing any of this at this point because why do you need to? They don't. What do they
Yeah,
have to prove anymore?
yeah,
They're still
exactly.
one of the best tag teams in wrestling. They are probably in history one of the best tag teams, so they really have nothing to prove anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, so moving on to the next topic. What's on the docket for us?
Well, this one's a little lighter, kind of, but Mike brought up the MJF promo from a few weeks ago on Dynamite.
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
that promo.
Yeah, that
Wow,
promo.
what a promo. It, it,
I don't know what to
it,
say about it. It's ah.
I'm in the boat. Well, I don't know if I'm in the boat. Let's just say, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, Mike is one of those people. He thinks that maybe this was, as they say in the wrestling business, a work
Well,
where.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, it's funny that you brought that up because he did while giving us the schedule of events we were going to be talking about, did send a follow up saying if the MJF thing is a work and he thinks it is, has the wrestling media taken a credibility hit if they were, like in on it, like Sean Ross Sapp or Dave Meltzer were kind of in on the fact that it was a work and just made it sound like it was real.
Ah,
He said, "Call
see
me
that.
cynical, but I can't see Meltzer not knowing that this was a work, assuming it is. Doesn't that essentially put him on the AEW payroll?" I see where Mike's coming from, but I think if I remember hearing it correctly, this was a shoot they turned into a work. I don't think it was ever 100% a work from start to finish. Like when he skipped out on the Double or Nothing meet and greet, I don't think that was a work. I think that was actually a real thing, at least from what I heard.
Hmm.
Again, we don't work in AEW. No one really, I mean, hell, it even sounded like people in AEW didn't even know what was going on. Like, they had to send, I think, if I remember correctly, a wellness check to his hotel because he wasn't like getting a hold of anybody. So I don't think, I don't think it was fully a work or fully a shoot. It was somewhere in the middle. I think from the Double or Nothing meet and greet a little bit onward, it was real. And then they knew that it was creating such a buzz that the promo turned it into a work. At least that's what I think.
Huh. Huh. I back to the promo itself.
Yeah.
Um, I think the promo itself was a semi shoot. I think him calling
Yeah.
Tony Khan a mark. I think that was a shoot because
More than
ever
just that.
since. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just putting it PG purposes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, Tony Khan, ever since he started All Elite Wrestling, was kind of that was kind of like the running joke, and it was
Yeah.
kind of almost disrespectful. Oh,
Mhm.
he's just the money guy.
Yep.
He's the money mark and
Mhm.
making all of his wrestling dreams come true.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that's always been the sentiment for Tony Khan.
Mhm.
So I don't know if MJF was just playing on that or he really thinks he's a mark.
Yeah, it was one of those where as soon as he's like, this is Maxwell Friedman talking or whatever, I'm like, okay, so we're gonna do that, aren't we? I feel like if it was a, like you say, a semi shoot, but also still kind of a work, I feel like Tony knew it was what the promo was kind of going to be about, but I think basically just told MJF, just say whatever you want to say. Just, probably don't take it too terribly far. But he swore. Like I said, just go back. Anybody who hasn't heard it, go back and watch it because
It was a good promo. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, I think it didn't go the way they wanted it to though, because that crowd was behind him 1,000%.
Mm,
Like that's what I honestly, when I was looking up uh some news about it before we came on, it sounded like that promo didn't really go according to plan because they didn't expect him to be cheered. And when they cut the mic, that wasn't planned either. They just did it because people were cheering him instead of booing him. And it's like, well, what did you expect? They cheered Punk when he did the same thing.
yeah, and they cheered Austin when he did the same thing too.
Exactly.
When people, I mean, it's almost kind of, I don't want to say recreating the Attitude Era, but
Yeah.
I think people are still in the same sentiment where some people out there just don't like their boss. You know,
Exactly. Yeah. And it's tough though because I see what they want to do, but I don't know in the long term if this is going to be a very good idea because look at Punk and Austin, especially. Those two, to a degree, in certain aspects, some different. Like, Austin represents, like, the blue collar working man kind of fan. CM
mhm.
Punk represents, like, I think it would be safe to say kind of like what you and I would be considered, I guess, like the alternative, like,
Counterculture.
counterculture, punk rock, alternative fan group, whatever. What does MJF represent? He represents the affluent silver spoon wealthy family group. Why so it's just so weird to me because you have these the common man wrestling fans cheering a wealthy rich snotty kid like they
Hmm.
cheered Austin and Punk. That just doesn't sit right with me because why? It it
I see.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it's going to be weird trying to figure out how to navigate through that.
Because you're not
I
telling them
think
face.
no. I think what they should. It's when you put it in that perspective, as you just did, and it makes perfect sense. You kind of just wonder, like, where could they go with this?
Yeah,
They kind of gave him an inch, and he took a mile.
yeah,
Uh, but again, it's like, what do you do? You know,
exactly. Like you don't make him a face. You can't even make him a tweener. Like you,
mhm.
everyone hates the guy. So what, like you said, what do? How far are you going to go with this, or are you going to turn this into? I, I'll be very surprised if they can make this into a thing where he's not the anti-hero basically because
Mhm.
MJF is not an anti-hero in any sense of the word in any context, no way, absolutely not. So I don't know how they're going to avoid that happening because once you do that you're going to kind of start putting him into a box and that's not where he's supposed to be. So
Yeah,
what
and
do you
a
do?
lot of MJF heel work is antagonizing the crowd. So I
Yeah.
can see where you're coming from.
So, because then, yeah, once hey, you kind of can't antagonize the crowd anymore because they're actually cheering for you. What do you do? What do you do? Like, you put the handcuffs on him, and then everyone starts to complain because it's not the MJF that everyone hated and was so like polarizing with AEW. It's like, well, they kind of didn't have a choice. So, I'm not saying it's not the fans' fault. It was just weird. that they had to
It
feel the
is.
need to put this into a storyline because I mean I get it. It was a highly talked about topic. I mean, it's still talked about now. So you just go with what people are talking about, but it's just like it's weird. Again, you're going to cheer for the guy who has essentially the silver spoon in his mouth, and that's not 99% of wrestling fans. So why would you cheer for him? I'm not cheering for him. What's the promo
Now,
industry? Yes, but I'm not like, oh yeah, go off MJF. It's just like, okay, I've seen this before, but
that was my next question. What is your take on, like, how are you going to perceive MJF?
probably the same. I mean, it's just I I don't hate him. I don't love him. It's just I mean, again, you can't deny the fact that he's probably one of the best heels in wrestling right now. Like bar
Hmm.
none. It's just okay. I said great promo because again, we love those passionate promos where if the wrestler's feeling it, you can't help but feel it too. So you're like, okay, yeah, that he's really going there. He's really like I mean, like I think the one thing where he's like, oh yeah, most of the like ex WWE guys that Tony signs can't even lace up my boots. I'm like, okay, let's not go that far. That's a little ridiculous, but yeah, when they had to bleep him and then cut his mic, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. That was cool, but yeah, it was just like that didn't make me cheer for him like that crowd did. It's just like, okay, I've
Yeah.
seen it
The
before.
more the more you put it in perspective, it is kind of weird that they cheered for him. I don't. Maybe it's because it is the sense of realness to wrestling that we kind of crave.
Yeah, that breaking of the fourth wall kind of thing.
Yeah, like we crave it to the point where things like this happen and we're like, oh, some sense of realism and not character work.
Pull the curtain
And
back.
yeah, and we can feel like we're a part of the backstage or what's going on. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's just it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do because I mean they've taken him off the well, and it was so funny the parallels here because we haven't seen him since they pulled his merch off of Shop AEW as far as I saw.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, what and they haven't mentioned his name in weeks.
2-3 weeks.
It's
Yeah.
almost like he doesn't exist anymore. I'm like conveniently around the same time as the whole Sasha and Naomi thing. So it's like, okay, I guess if it works for WWE realistically, it can work for AEW in a work fashion, but whatever. So yeah, I don't know what exactly they're going to do at this point. Is he just going to show up in the crowd at some point? Is he just gonna reappear? Are they gonna put something on YouTube? Are they gonna put something on Twitter? Like no one knows what's happening. So it's almost a wait and see kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I still don't know if it's a work or shoot altogether.
No, me neither. It's
But
it's tough.
I think something definitely is going to happen within the coming weeks. I think it may be turned into a work,
Mhm.
but it's still going to be one of those things where like, oh, they pulled it off and they made a competent story. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I guess I'll just still at least for now stick with the as soon as when he skipped the double or nothing meet and greet, I think that was a shoot, and I think
Hmm.
that that part was pretty realistic, and the whole like behind closed doors talk with Tony Khan was a shoot too. I think the promo was definitely not a shoot; it was a work because it was almost too obvious that it was a quote unquote shoot that it had to be a work. So
Yeah.
I'll say about it. So who knows? All right, so we have one more topic to talk about, and that is the laundry list of injuries AEW and WWE stars have, including Cody, Orton, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, and probably more than I can't remember, and Mike couldn't remember either, but not necessarily the amount of people, it's who's injured right now is a bit of a problem.
Yeah. I there's some names on there. I didn't know Adam Cole was injured. Did you hear about his injury?
Yes, I did, because I remember when 10 years ago when Double or Nothing was on, I was watching his match with Samoa Joe and I had noticed I don't know if you remember this. It was I think towards the end of the match or maybe in the middle when Joe hit him with the clothesline. He tried to do the inside out thing and he kind of landed on his neck.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not good. That didn't look very good at all. But then I had heard that he had kind of like a list of injuries that he had to like heal up. I think something about his labrum. There's like a labrum injury or something. So I think he was just kind of like all the injuries are like catching up to him because
Right.
I knew for a fact that he had to have been hurt because I remember during Double or Nothing, they had announced on the Dynamite after Double or Nothing, it was going to be the Undisputed Elite versus, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Jurassic Express and Christian Cage, and I'm blanking on who the other team was really, but then all of a sudden, instead of Adam Cole, it was, who was it? Was it Tamatonga, I think? No, it was, Hikuleo. It was Hikuleo.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like, well, the only reason he wouldn't, because I'm like, I'm not crazy. I knew it was Adam, and now all of a sudden it's
Right.
Hikuleo, so
Right. Yeah.
he's hurt.
That's what I was wondering too. I remembered that match now, and I remember specifically going, "Why is Hikuleo in the match?"
Yeah, because I'm like, he's definitely not Adam Cole, so I'm not crazy. So I knew he was hurt then. And then Orton, I didn't know Orton got hurt really until I just noticed he just wasn't there. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, usually if you're not on TV for quite a while, it's either they have nothing for you or you're hurt. And they definitely had stuff for him. He just wasn't there. So I think it's his back. I think he has a back injury, and I think even
Yeah,
worse too, he's gonna
he's
be
gonna
out the
need
rest of the year.
surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's gonna need back surgery. So
Ugh.
that can't be good because he's been doing this for how long?
Oh, decades. Decades,
Yeah.
it seems like. I think like almost 2002, maybe. It's almost 20 years for most of my existence, which is kind of crazy. Again, but
When you put it that way.
yeah, he's been wrestling since I was 4 years old. No, that doesn't sound right. Um, about 2002 would have been. Well, let's say I was born in '96, so I would have been about 6 years old. It's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So for most of my existence, he's been wrestling, and he's always had problems, I think, with like his back and his shoulders. So that's not good. And it was just another. That was also broken, I think, right around the same time as the whole Vince and Sasha thing. So it was like one hit after another after another. And it's just like, my God, what the hell is going on? And then you had Cody, which we actually do have a couple questions about his problem, but that was terrible timing too, because we had talked about it earlier. He was pretty much in prime position to be the next like top babyface in WWE, and then you screw your shoulder up.
Not only he screwed his shoulder, he screwed his whole half of his body up. Because
Yeah,
because that whole
his pec, like a torn pectoral muscle, I believe.
torn pectoral muscle clean off the bone.
Ugh, God,
So
that bruising was. Ugh.
and he wrestled that night.
Yeah, which again, we have a question about that, so I'll save most of my opinions because that was not probably the smartest idea, but I mean, you gotta appreciate his dedication, I guess. And I don't know
It's
how it
just so
happened, but
it's
dumb.
just so crazy because if this was AEW Cody, we probably would have been all over him.
Yeah, it's we probably would have, to be honest. I mean, I'll still say, and I can still say this with 100% conviction. I still thought it was absolutely stupid. If it was AEW, I would have thought it was stupid too. It was dumb. Like you tear your pec clean off the bone. Why are you wrestling? But I'll save more of my opinions for that for the question. But it's just like, my God, that was terrible timing. And then you have AEW side again with terrible timing. CM Punk and Bryan Danielson after Punk wins the damn title and has it for not even a week. About a week, yeah, because it was because he was on the Dynamite, and then not even a week because he relinquished it on Rampage the week after, or the Rampage after Double or Nothing, didn't he?
Yeah, because he wrestled that 6-man with FTR, and
Mhm.
I'm guessing that's when he hurt his leg.
Some people said it could have been when he staged, like, dove into the crowd.
Really?
Could have been. Because, again, you don't know. You're never going to. I think he broke a bone in his leg, I think, if I remember
Jesus
correctly.
Christ.
Yeah, but and no one really knows when he got hurt, if it was during the match, if it was when he dove into the crowd beforehand, because I think someone said if you go back and see after he dives into the crowd and he comes out, he's kind of like looking at his foot a little bit and kind of like is like gimping or like, you know, a little limping a little bit. So I don't know if that's when it actually happened, but it was absolutely terrible timing because it's like he just won the damn title not even a week before. And he's already, I mean, it's tough. He's relinquishing it, but he's not relinquishing it because Tony didn't want him to. So still, he's technically the champion, but he's not the champion. It was kind of convoluted a little bit, but
Yeah, that's the crazy part is this whole trying to figure out the interim championship or anything
yeah.
like that. It's just
I mean, at least
okay,
we know
what are
who it's
we
going to be now. One of two guys. I mean, we know that, but ugh,
it's just terrible timing like you said. Um
yeah.
just with all the injuries because you have Forbidden Door coming up and
Hmm.
they've been making a big deal about this Zack Sabre Jr. Brian Danielson potential match.
Yeah.
And if that match happens, by no that's my match of the night right there.
Oh, I could, yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
because you easily have two of the best technical wrestlers on the planet going
Hmm.
after each other. It's all a matter if it actually happens though. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing with
Yeah.
these
And,
injuries.
well, and Danielson has a concussion. I remember that because,
And you got to be careful with him and his concussions because of
yes.
what he's already been through.
Because I think they said he was supposed to go to, I'm pretty sure it was like a Comic Con of some sorts, maybe, or just some type of convention. And he had to cancel because he couldn't fly. And I'm like, well, that literally means one injury and one injury alone because you can fly with just about any injury except a concussion. So it
Mm.
really didn't take much to figure out what would happen to him. But
Ah,
it's just like terrible. Like you said, terrible timing because, like you said, you got Forbidden Door coming up. Oh, I don't know, Sunday, like literally this Sunday. So at least you know when we're gonna have our next episode. It's gonna be Saturday for the predictions. But my God, it was just like everybody got hurt at the same time or within weeks of each other, and it's like, what is
yeah.
going on?
Something in the water.
Apparently, I don't know what. Stay away from that water, I guess. But God damn. So yeah, hopefully at least. Well, I'm hoping Adam Cole gets or is all healed up soon too, because I mean, Jesus, he just won the Owen Hart tournaments and then he hasn't wrestled since. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do with him and Hangman and Jay White because they
yeah,
had that little thing earlier on Dynamite this past week
yeah,
where Adam Cole thought it was going to be him and Jay White,
yeah.
and Jay White's like, "Nah, it's not going to be me and you either." So it's kind of just wondering what it's going to be like.
I
It
love that
maybe
too. I love, and now it's like, wait, Jay, what do you, wait, hold on, what are you talking about? It was supposed to be us, and it was just funny seeing him just like freak out, and Jay just like does not care. It's just like,
yeah.
yeah, whatever. I can do whatever I want. And Adam's like, no, that's not what was supposed to happen. But yeah, now you don't know what's going on. It's crazy.
Yeah, but that's wrestling for you, isn't
Yeah, it pretty
it?
is, unfortunately. Yeah, and believe it or not, I think that actually was all of the topics of conversation, and it sure worked because we're over an hour already.
Yeah, but we're still not done
No.
because it's time for my favorite part of the show,
Oh,
and that
yes.
is the mailbag segment where we answer your questions, and we have questions dating back weeks that we have
Yeah.
to answer.
Yeah, we got some actually. I was gonna start with the questions we got last week, but then I forgot that Jeff had a bunch of questions from like the 6th, so I figured we should probably do those first. Um, So, Jeff, as I'm scrolling to get to your questions, thank you for all your questions. I always appreciate when he sends in, like, as you know, multiple questions a week. So, we always appreciate that. Um, that's a little too far. That's way too far, actually. That was May. Okay, so his first question from a few weeks ago was who do we think is going to be the one that finally dethrones Mandy Rose?
That's a good question because the
I
women's
know.
division in NXT is kind of blah. Like NXT
Yeah.
on to be real is kind of been very blah,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But when you kind of think of the women's division, I mean,
And not to mention Nikita Lyons is hurt apparently. That's why she wasn't in the rest of the tournament.
really, because I honestly thought she was going to be the winner.
Yeah, because I'm looking and because I remember, as our listeners know, and it's unfortunately continuing, we don't really pay very close attention to WWE stuff. I mean, we still kind of have to, obviously, for this and whatnot, but it's very painful to try and like give your full undivided attention to these shows. I
Yeah,
remember looking and I saw that the finals for the women's breakout tournament is Tiffany Stratton and is it Roxanne
and
Perez, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm looking at that and I'm like, wait, you mean to tell me you had Tiffany Stratton beat Nikita Lyons because they were both on the same side of the bracket? I said, there is no
mm,
goddamn way she beat her. But then again, she's beaten Saray, so I wouldn't have been surprised. But come to think of it, and then I looked it up a little more, and apparently Nikita Lyons is hurt. So she would have been my pick probably. Or Roxanne, or maybe Cora Jade eventually. I don't think they're going to do that for a while, though. But
yeah. I like Roxanne Perez a
yeah,
lot. I think the only downside she has is that she's young.
yes.
But other than that, I like her a lot.
Hmm.
And I think she has the skill that maybe she can carry on this new sort of feel
Yeah,
to NXT where it's like we want to be younger, we want to reach out to a younger demographic,
yeah.
things like that. I think she fits that bill perfectly for me.
I think so too. Same with Cora Jade. It just they kind of push her rather heavily and then it's kind of backed off a little bit. So I'm sure at some point she'll get there. Like I said, besides those two, I feel like Nikita Lyons is really the only one because that who else is there? It's kind of sad actually. But
There's not a lot of people there.
oh god, no, it really isn't. It's kind of depressing. Okay, so you can answer this question I think a little better than I can because I really don't remember Hell in a Cell a whole lot.
Okay.
Does he would like to know, was it the right choice to have Asuka eat the pin at Hell in a Cell?
Hmm.
Which I'm sure he was not happy about because obviously he loves Asuka, so
Right. Yeah. Uh, because it was Bianca Belair,
mhm.
Asuka, and Becky Lynch.
Yeah.
I think in WWE's eyes, Becky Lynch is still a bigger star than all three of them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but Bianca Belair is the better performer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah, those two are very neck and neck, I think. So
yeah, no, definitely for sure they're neck and neck.
Asuka was
But
just the odd one out.
right, I think Asuka just didn't have that as much star power as Becky
Yeah.
did, and obviously they wanted to keep the belt on Bianca. So
Yeah. It was I feel like unfortunately that's kind of Asuka's WWE career in a nutshell is always terrible timing or just always seems to be with bigger stars. Which
hmm
is kind of a shame because she's a big star in her own right. They just kind of almost refuse to acknowledge it because people tend to forget she was the longest reigning single reign longest reigning NXT Women's Champion, one of the most dominant. I mean, kind of again, same goes for Shayna Baszler. Those two, without a doubt, were two of the most dominant NXT performers. Period when they were in NXT. So
hmm
you kind of forget that that's a thing, especially with Asuka, because she came into NXT with great fanfare and was undefeated her entire time. I don't think she ever did lose. The only fact she lost the titles because she got hurt and was getting moved up. So she never technically lost in NXT ever. But
nope, she didn't.
you wouldn't know that if you see that today, which is it's a shame. But
Yeah, it is. But and in terms of should she have been the one to eat the pin? I understand why you wouldn't want her to be the one to eat the
yeah,
pin because she came back with a lot of fanfare,
mhm.
and she's someone that can carry a division for sure.
Oh yeah,
It's just the other two in the match. Bianca Belair is a star,
hmm
and Becky Lynch is a star. Those stars are just a tad bit brighter than Oscars.
yeah, and it sucks to say that, but it's
Yeah,
unfortunately just how it is.
just how it is.
Yeah. Why do we think AEW cut Hangman's reign short like that? It feels like he kind of got screwed over just to put Punk over.
I feel like I don't want to jump on you. Go ahead if you have an answer.
No, I was still trying to figure it out myself. I feel like I think it was almost kind of another right place, wrong time kind of thing.
Mm.
He had the title, and it just happened to be Punk was the one that was going after him. And with the way Punk was being booked, you almost couldn't have him lose. So,
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when I think about why they cut Hangman's reign short, you think about what Tony Khan said
mhm.
in retaliation to what Eric Bischoff said about CM Punk. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
because Eric Bischoff said CM Punk it will go down as the biggest financial flop in AEW history, and
yeah,
that really pissed Tony Khan off to the
yeah,
point where he rattled off everything like Punk's been the number one segment for this
yeah,
most anticipated match for this. He just went off and just
yeah,
went off on a tangent.
mhm,
So I just kind of felt like they had all their eggs in the CM Punk basket
yeah.
and they were going to book him to win anyway.
Yeah, I think it's just safe to say it didn't matter which it doesn't matter which person had the title. They were gonna end up losing anyway.
Yeah, I think Punk was too hot at that point, but in retrospect, and the whole him getting hurt, and then
Yeah.
I like I said, I'm still trying to figure out when he got hurt, and then you said it could have been during the stage dive, and I'm like, well, that's the dumbest thing possible.
Yeah, he if that's the case, he definitely won't be doing that anymore, but
Nope.
yeah. Yeah, again, I think it was just wrong place, right time or like right place, wrong time kind of thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
um okay, so this was what I was waiting for because I didn't I asked the same question too until mom helped answer it for me. How is it possible that WWE's doctors cleared Cody to wrestle with that injury?
Well, I want to hear your rant on this that you've been saving up. What do
Well,
you think about him wrestling with that injury?
well, first off, I think we both agree it was dumb, like completely stupid. Like, why would you do that? And that's what I told mom when we were talking about it when she saw the like pictures and everything. I'm like, why would you do that when you're already hurt? It's just it made no sense to me. I'm like, that's stupid. It why? And she made a very good point that I didn't really think about. She said, if your pectoral muscle is torn clean off the bone, you can't really make it any worse. It's about as worse as it can get.
That's
So,
true.
so I feel like that was really the only ththing that saved him was that it's not like it was a partial tear that, oh, if you go out there and wrestle again, it's going to be a problem.
Mm.
There was no more damage he could have caused. That was how
That's
bad it
true,
was.
and that's true because it brings to light afterward when he come out on Monday Night Raw. He cuts the promo, everything's great. Then Seth Rollins attacks him, and
Hmm.
Seth Rollins is taking shots at the actual injury.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was painful, but it's true what your mom says. You can't get any worse.
The only thing I can think of though is that yeah, the pectoral injury can't get any worse, but who's not to say he could have got a concussion? Who's to say he couldn't have torn his ACL or his MCL? So you could have caused more damage to yourself elsewhere than the initial injury. So
Right, because he basically couldn't move that whole side of his body.
no, no, he couldn't. So it's like you could have easily just made other parts worse. But I mean, I guess that's determination for you. I just thought it was stupid, but
I could imagine you backstage, just stupid, stupid, stupid.
right, just stupid stuff. Whatever. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So far in 2022, who has put on the better pay-per-views, WWE or AEW, and which pay-per-view has been our favorite?
I have to say, in terms of who's putting on better pay per views, I think wrestling wise and story wise, AEW
Yeah,
obviously has put on
yeah,
the better pay per views,
oh yeah,
but WWE has had some sneaky good pay per views. Like Hell in a Cell was pretty good.
yeah, yeah. It was
It,
good. I mean, WrestleMania wasn't bad either. WrestleMania was pretty
WrestleMania,
good.
yeah, WrestleMania was good too. So it's like they may not have their TV programming figured out, but their premium live events
Yeah,
uh, have not been disappointing at all. It's just their TV stuff is like getting to there is like
Yeah.
a really, really big chore.
I mean, granted, our expectations are below zero, so they could have a below average pay per view and we'd still be like, hey, that wasn't actually too bad. But that's
Yeah.
not. It's not AEW's level of you always expect. It's like kind of what we would always say about NXT takeovers. You go in
Hmm.
there expecting it to be a very good pay per view. That's
Yeah.
how it was. So you always go into an AEW pay per view expecting it to be good. WWE, you're just expecting it not to be bad.
I'm just hoping that they're not as long as Double or Nothing, because
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Jesus, that was a long pay-per-view.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Then again, I'm any opportunity I can get that's not during a work day, I don't mind staying up late. Like I am a night person through and through, which I find hilarious considering I wake up at 5:45 every morning, so I have the most morning person job ever. But I prefer the night, so I'm like, this isn't bothering me at all. And my mom's like, I am tired. I'm like, well, you better not because there's still two more matches. So
I was just like, I am very tired. And then, like I said, I like to take notes because I
yeah.
can't remember anything.
Hmm.
So I have to take notes on everything that I watch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
taking notes, it was just like it started to become homework.
Yeah, oh God, we don't need homework anymore. We're way past the need for homework.
Yeah.
God knows God, I don't need to think about homework anymore. All right, so we got out of the questions from a few weeks ago, so now we're into the questions from the ninth. He threw us two more. Why do we think WWE sent Apollo, Cruz, and Aziz back to NXT?
Um, did they send Aziz? I didn't see Aziz. Did he show up?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't
I
think he
did
did.
I did see the Apollo Crews arrival to NXT. I just think they kind of they want NXT to be as much of a offshoot of their main roster programming that's why they bring guys in.
Yeah,
Because they did
yeah.
it with Dolph Ziggler, and Robert Roode.
Hmm.
Who else did they do it with? The Viking Raiders
Yeah,
came in for a little bit. So I think they want NXT 2.0 to be as much like the main roster as possible. So might as well bring in some main roster people to join in on the fun. I
yeah.
will say that they have been booking the right ones because it's like when they go to NXT 2.0,
Hmm.
they almost feel like they don't have the shackles on,
No, which is funny
you
how that
know,
works. Yeah.
and they're able to work with younger talent,
Hmm.
and they're kind of being looked at as like mentors and things of that nature.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
Natty. I
and of course, Natty, yes, and Natty's probably the biggest one out of all of them.
yeah, I'd
Um,
agree.
she had that great match with Cora Jade and to leave NXT, and that was just great. So I think it's just that they want 2.0 to be as much as like Raw and SmackDown as possible.
Yeah.
So they want to give it a little bit of main roster flair, and why not use people that they're not going to be using? They're not using Apollo Crews on the main roster,
No, not even close.
so
So
you
yeah,
know.
I'd say you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's more for just like mentors and try to bring some ratings in. If it
Hmm.
works, it's beyond us. If it does, I feel like it kind of does. Sometimes doesn't, but I think that's more or less what it's for, mostly. Because if you have nothing else to do on the main roster, you might as well go down to NXT. Like, why not?
Yep.
Um. Hmm. Okay, so there were rumors of more releases coming up. Was there anybody we could see getting cut from NXT? Well, they did cut the one guy with Tony D'Angelo, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they released him. I
That's
don't know
it.
what was the reason why, but
I think
from what I heard,
he may have failed the drug policy. Maybe I think he or some conduct policy. Maybe I don't remember to be honest.
ooh, interesting.
It wasn't just a regular release. There was something about it. Like he didn't abide by the first. Yeah, I don't remember. Like I said, it wasn't a regular release, except I mean, unless I read it wrong, but I think he just failed some policy or broke some policy they had. But
Mm.
even when they said his name, I'm like, who? I didn't remember.
Yeah, I think because to me, from what I read, I don't know how true it is, but
Mhm.
they want to do cuts every 90 days or so.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like I think they're because they're doing like a performance wise. Like if we don't see you trending upwards, you're basically dead to us.
Hmm.
That's a nice way of putting it, I guess. But yeah, yeah, I don't really. It's just so tough to tell who they're going to release because you don't think you can't expect any of them to be safe. That's the easiest way to put it. Like,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
so that's my answer. No, I don't know who's getting released because it could literally be anybody. They could think that someone's had a very good match the week before, and then the next thing you know, they're unemployed. So that's NXT in a nutshell for you. So yeah. Um. Okay, so I forgot that when he sent us these ones last week, these were actually some of these we already did answer. So I'm going to go through and make sure we don't have any repeats because he did add a few more relevant ones in from the last week or so. Oh, I know we're gonna love this one. Is it finally Liv Morgan's time since she qualified for Money in the Bank, or is WWE gonna screw her over yet again?
I think she's not going to win. So I think in your terms, they're going to screw her over again. I don't think it's going to
Probably.
be a screw over, but I don't think she's going to win.
Yeah.
If anything, I would like to see her and what her and Alexa Bliss can do as a tag team.
At this rate, yeah, you might as well.
Might as well, right?
Because God knows they're not gonna. I don't know. It's just tough because it's almost kind of like WWE again in a nutshell with when it comes to like Liv Morgan too with you and I, where it's like we've gotten our hopes up so many times and now it's almost just like we have to leave them in the ground. So then if she even wins a match, we're like, oh, thank God she actually wins a match. But it's like if she has a big moment, we're almost just like, okay, we're just expecting her to lose at this point because they've literally done nothing different. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. It's a shame, but yeah, I don't. I would love for it to be her time. Will it be? I doubt it because why would they? Yeah, because we answered that one already. All right, so Will Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy, is it an immediate match of the year contender if they make it happen? Well, it's happening.
It's happening. I don't know if it's going to be a match of the year candidate.
And they
It
did
all
put the
depends.
titles on the line too.
Right. Yeah. The title is on the line. I don't know if Will Ospreay has possession of the title,
He
but
does.
the title, he does have possession of it.
Yeah, I think he was at the IWGP United States Championship.
Right. Because
Yeah,
Juice Robinson was the one that was holding the title.
yeah. Well,
And
yeah,
okay, good.
yeah,
So, I at first I was like, I was kind of disappointed, but Orange Cassidy has been sneaky good.
yeah. I remember his match with Pac at
Revolution.
yeah, that was a fantastic match. So he can actually
Yeah.
wrestle.
He's
So
sneaky
yeah,
good. He's got some sneaky good stuff in him. Um, so I mean, like it's one of those matches where I'm keeping my anticipation low,
yeah,
so I'm not disappointed.
hmm yeah. It should. I think it should be pretty good. Match of the year, maybe not. Match of the night. I'm not so sure either because this card for Forbidden Door is pretty stacked.
Hmm.
Which nice little segue into the next question. Tanahashi and Moxley, will it be the ultimate match of the year? And who wins and becomes the interim AEW champion?
I'm going with Moxley right now.
Hmm.
Because I like Tanahashi. I don't think he can handle doing the championship press work for AEW and New Japan.
Yeah.
But for me, Tanahashi, he as good as he is, he's kind of been broken.
Hmm.
He's got all these injuries. He's got a
Yeah.
bad back, bad knees, bad this, bad that. So I'm kind of nervous for him, and I'm kind of nervous for the match.
Yeah, the only reason I would have said Tanahashi was because whoever holds the title has to wrestle Punk to see who the actual AEW world champion is, and that was already going to be the match for Forbidden Door anyway. It was going to be Punk and Tanahashi, but no, I think it's going to be Moxley. I think it still should be a pretty good match. Maybe not, again, maybe not match of the year. If it was like if Tanahashi was 100%, maybe, but
Hmm.
with all these injuries, I'm not entirely sure. But I still think that match is going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think so too.
And also, speaking of Forbidden Door, how awesome is it going to be with all the matches that have been announced?
I'm super stoked for it because I'm hoping that it'll get me back into New Japan.
Yeah.
Because I was a big proponent of New Japan, so I'm hoping that maybe this will be the show that'll get me back into New Japan.
Mhm.
For anybody that doesn't watch New Japan, this is a great show for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you'll get to be introduced to a lot of different styles, a
Mhm.
lot of different wrestlers, and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
it's good for the wrestling fan.
Yeah, I agree. This is like definitely a good opening door. That's not a terrible. That's a terrible joke, but it's the truth. It's a good like entryway into New Japan, especially if you're an AEW fan. I think that's like this is like the best of both worlds.
I have to agree with you.
All right, so I think we got through all of Jeff's questions. So Jeff, thank you for all your questions. I hope I didn't leave any out because we had to go through literally 3 weeks worth of messages between him and I to find them. But I think I got them, so we should be good. Let's see. We're now going to go to the questions we got last week. So we're going to start with Mike, who asked about the AEW All Atlantic Championship.
Another
And
belt.
our thoughts on it. I'm surprised it wasn't the trios belt, to be honest.
I don't know if they had enough trios for a tournament of that nature.
You would think with all the factions they have to have enough people because they got
Yeah,
factions
you're
all
right.
over the place.
You're right.
But
I don't know, but
the All Atlantic's a pretty good belt, though. It looks pretty cool. At least I think
it looks like a cool belt.
And who do we think is going to win it, though? That's the question.
Malachi Black is my pick.
God, I hope so. My heart says Malachi, but my head probably says Miro, and I hate it. I really hate it. But then I did notice something too. I noticed that with the way the bracket's going, it's a four-way. It's a fatal four-way at Forbidden Door, and then the final two entrants. It's whoever wins between Malachi and Penta, and then there's going to be somebody from New Japan, but they didn't say who.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's going to be like a surprise or whatever, but I feel like it kind of gave away in a way who's already going to make it into the match, at least between Malachi and Penta, because I heard something along the lines of anybody in AAA like Lucha Libre can't wrestle with New Japan.
Yeah, right.
So,
They have contractual obligations where they can't wrestle for New Japan if they're associated with AAA.
because I think it's like what's it CMLL if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like Lucha Libre, and Lucha Libre doesn't like them, and they work with New Japan. So that pretty much guarantees Malachi's winning that match because if I remember, Penta still was kind of worse with Lucha Libre, don't they? I think like he does. So
they did. They worked the AAA Mania show that was this past weekend. I want to say yesterday.
Exactly.
Was it yesterday?
It might have been.
I think it was yesterday because I think I saw a couple posts. So I think it was yesterday.
So yeah,
and I think Phoenix ended up winning a title too.
Exactly. So I feel like kind of gives it away that Malachi is going to be in the match at Forbidden Door, which of course I'm perfectly okay with. Like I agree with you. I want him to win. I just have a feeling it's going to be Miro. But then again, since it's a fatal four-way, Miro doesn't technically have to get pinned to like not win the title. So that's probably what Pac and who's the other one? I'm forgetting. Oh, who's the other one that qualified? Or no, it was Miro and Pac. Those were the only two that qualified. Because yeah. So I feel like Pac might eat the pin. Maybe it might be the person from New Japan. I don't know, but that would be the only reason I think Miro doesn't win it. But I just want Malachi to hold some gold. Like we've been begging for this for months. I just want it to happen because if you want them to finally like be fully established in the majority of wrestling fans, not just ours, because we're a little biased, obviously, but if you want to fully establish the House of Black as a threat in AEW, somebody has to have some gold in there somewhere.
Hey, that's a very good point.
So even if it's just Malachi, give him a goddamn title belt already because we're begging for it, please.
Yeah, I just think out of everyone in the tournament, it makes most sense for him.
Yeah, because it's like Miro just came back, so it's like, yeah, I guess that could help reestablish him as a threat, but it's like, I don't know why you would literally give him a belt 2 weeks after he came back.
Yeah. I mean, and his promos have been really weird too.
I don't get any of them. I mean, then again, I'm not much of a religious person myself, so when he starts talking, I'm like, I'm sorry.
I don't know if he's like religious or he hates God. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, and then it's like, is he talking to his wife or is he talking to God? Like, I don't know what's going on. It makes no sense to me. Whatever. Just give Malachi the gold, and that's all we really care about, to be honest. Oh, this one hurts my soul. Will Paige wrestle before the end of the year? Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
not for WWE.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's not gonna be Paige anymore. It's gonna be Soraya, and that kind of that really did suck. Obviously, for the listeners that don't know, Paige had, was it last week, I think, on Twitter, that July 7th, I think, is her last day with WWE.
Hmm.
And that one stung a little bit for me personally, because
She's one of
she
your favorites.
she was the one that I can pretty much guarantee kind of helped get me really into women's wrestling again, because we've said it before.
Hmm.
Before, it was like, when it was like the Divas era of wrestling, it was really hard for me to care, because I'm like, none of this stuff relates to me at all. Like, I don't like the pretty girls and like all these stupid things, like, made no sense to me, because it's like, no, I actually want them to wrestle, because it is a wrestling company.
Hmm.
So when I finally saw Paige, I'm like, this is finally somebody that I can relate to, like the outcast, the anti diva. I'm like, this is absolutely perfect. So she was the main catalyst for me getting into women's wrestling, and now she's not in WWE anymore, which, I mean, sucks, but if that means she might get to come back into the ring, I'm all for it, because I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why she's not having her contract renewed is because she wants to come back in the ring and they won't let her.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I get it on WWE's end, like they want to protect her and they also want to
Yeah.
protect themselves
Hmm.
because the last time she was in a match, she got kicked in the back of the head and that was it. That was the end
Yeah.
of that,
Yeah. Hmm.
So obviously they want to protect themselves for any for any more damage
Yeah.
that can happen. They
Hmm.
want to protect themselves from. But I can sympathize with her. She wants to get back in the ring. She wants to do
Yep.
what she's passionate about.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
it's
well,
only it's a matter of who's going to take a gamble on
yeah.
her body because her body's kind of not up to par yet.
I mean, I feel like we know who will, because they've already taken a chance on somebody in literally her exact same position. That's AEW.
Yeah, yeah,
You got Brian Danielson. And that's the thing, too. Like, if Edge and Brian Danielson can come back, she can come back.
that's true. That's true. That's very true.
Because most people thought their careers were absolutely over, and here they are wrestling on a daily basis. So I would love to see her back in the ring again. And when I do, I will probably be crying. But hey, what else is new? Who knows? Who it's going to be for, I don't know. I just, to answer Mike's question in a very roundabout way, yeah, I think she will be wrestling before the end of the year.
Yeah,
Just for
hopefully.
who? Yeah, who knows?
All
Um,
right.
let's see. All right, so we're gonna go to Mom's questions from last week. She would want to know, what impact Will Ospreay is going to have in AEW, if he has any.
I think he can have a big impact in AEW. I think, especially going off the match that he had with Dax Harwood, I
Oh yeah.
think they saw that he can actually be somebody special. But he loves being in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He loves wrestling for New Japan. He loves living in Japan. He loves having that life. So to pry him away from that, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah. I don't really see that happening. But yeah, no, he's, from what I've seen so far, very good wrestler. From what I've
Hmm.
also heard, not a great human being, but
He's questionable.
yeah.
He's definitely questionable. He's made some remarks that you're just kind of like, oh,
It's like, please stop talking.
yeah,
Yeah, but in the ring, fantastic. I still am very confused why they didn't win that first match he had on Rampage. That was kind of odd, but beating Dax Harwood made sense. I mean, you kind of feel bad for Dax, but he just continues to show that both him and Cash can be very good singles wrestlers. So,
mm-hmm,
but yeah, I think he would have a pretty big impact in AEW. I just don't think it's going to really happen, because, like you said, he just doesn't want to stay away from Japan, which, hey, is totally understandable. If you're comfortable in a place, you don't want to go anywhere. Makes sense.
yeah.
I knew it. Danhausen and Hook's new rides are top notch. I would agree.
I
They're
love them.
they're golf carts.
I wish I could have one.
Yeah, me too, right? Or what did he call them? Their BMWs or something? I think yeah, like Hook called them like or Dan Allison called them their like BMWs or whatever. And I'm like, you know, yeah. Hey, they won. They got all the monies, so they can spend those monies on sweet rides, and they are sweet rides. I mean, Hooks was very cool, very cool. Yeah, you gotta love those two. Like, how can you not? Like, even their promo on Rampage. It's like when people are excited just to see a 30 to 40 second clip of people on
Mhm.
a hour long program, you know that they're special. And Hookhausen's just fun.
That's for sure.
It's going to be interesting to see when they actually wrestle next. I think they said Hook's going to be wrestling on Dynamite this week. He's wrestling, I think they said one of the top dojo members. What was it? The New Japan LA
Uh,
dojo, I think.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
the dojo boys.
So that's going to be interesting. And obviously Danhausen will be there, so that should be fun. But yeah, I'm hoping that we get to see them wrestle as a team again, or at least have Danhausen wrestle at some point. But either way, I still look forward to their little promos and stuff throughout the week. It's hilarious.
Mhm.
Um, is there any way for WWE not to take shots at their employees? I mean, if they go at Stephanie McMahon, then no one's really safe. I mean,
Whew.
I feel like they
Wow.
can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah. They can't help it. I mean, it's just it goes back to everything that's been happening with Vince McMahon. It's like kind of like it kind of bit himself in the foot.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's just yeah, that was almost karma there, wasn't it? That just
Right?
reeks of karma where it's like, well, I'm gonna not say anything about my daughter stepping away and then basically letting everyone trash her because she was terrible at her job, and then karma's like, oh, you want to bet? And here we
And
are.
now she's back. Not only that, but she holds all the power.
Right, that is just
This is some TV show House of Cards type stuff.
right. It's just like, what is going on? We're living in a wrestling drama show, soap opera, something. I don't. God only knows.
Simulation.
Yeah, we're living in a simulation. That's literally it. And her last question from last week is, what match are we looking forward to the most at Forbidden Door?
Hopefully it is Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. If not, then I guess Moxley and Tanahashi.
Yeah, I'd say those ones are going to be pretty good. I mean, obviously, I'm a little intrigued at how Thunder Rosa and Tony Storm's going to go because obviously Thunder Rosa's been a little point of controversy lately. I'm surprised
Yeah.
we didn't get a question about that. We may have from last week or this week. I'm not sure, but yeah, she has been accused of directly and indirectly from more than one person of sandbagging opponents she doesn't like to wrestle against. And I mean, if you really think about it, that little clip of her trying to get suplexed by Marina Shafir did not do her any favors. I don't think.
And she had that same issue with Evilise
Mm-hmm.
that they had issues with each other.
Yeah.
And they couldn't be professional amongst each other.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be interested to see how that match goes. I mean, honestly, every single one. Because I'm looking at the card right now. Every single one of these, I'm intrigued to see in one way or another. Like the 4-way match for the All Atlantic Championship, obviously, because we're praying Malachi number one makes it to it and number two wins it. Okay, I kind of did lie a little bit. Like, I mean, you got Wheeler Yuta coming back, so that's gonna be good with Eddie Kingston and Shota against the Jericho Appreciation Society, whatever. So that should be, I guess, interesting. At least you get to see Wheeler Yuta come back, so that should be fun. I think the sneaky good match is going to be that 3-way tag team winner takes all match for
Oh yeah, that's gonna be good.
the Ring of Honor tag champs and the IWGP tag team champs. So you got like FTR and the United Empire, Great O'Con and Jeff Cobb versus Roppongi Vice. That's going to be a really sneaky good match, I think.
I
I feel
gotta
like
agree with you there.
that might be the one that I think they're going to open the show with that one, maybe, and that's going to, I think, set the pace for everything. because how could it not? Like, it should be interesting. And then, of course, Orange and Will Ospreay, that should be fun as well. Wouldn't you laugh if Orange actually wins?
I would be very, very surprised.
I would be too, but I mean, hey, I like Orange, so I'd be okay with it. But who knows? Who knows? All right, so those were Mom's questions from last week. Now we got Jack's. So, Jack, thank you for your questions last week. Um, this is a little fun one. Do we think the WWE Women's Tag Team division has been retired?
Yep.
Unofficially, yeah.
I said so on the last show that
Yeah.
there wasn't going to be any tournament. I still don't think there is.
And you talked it into existence because there isn't any. So, yeah, it's great. It's a great time. Do we think Cody Rhodes' injury influenced the Edge Finn Balor switch in Raw because Raw needs good guys now that he's hurt? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why they probably did it.
Well, from what I heard, Edge wasn't in agreement to the storyline for the Judgment Day, and that's
Mhm.
what caused his exit from
Yeah,
the Judgment Day.
because I said they wanted to be more supernatural, and it's like, why? It was going well without it. I'm not entirely sure why they needed to. You can have it. This is the thing that's very frustrating. I'm sure you'll agree. You can have this like dark gothic spooky kind of aesthetic and not have it be supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
I agree.
why they feel the need that there has to be, but whatever. I mean, what do we know? It's just it's dumb, but hey, what else is new? Yeah. Let's see. Are we? I mean, obviously, we kind of answered it, but we can answer it again. Are we excited for Forbidden Door, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Danielson's finally happening? Well, we hope so.
We hope so.
And yeah, we're definitely excited, as we just said. Yeah, this card's, like I said, there really isn't. And that's the kind of the good thing with AEW. I always say it. There's always at least even if it's just a singular reason, there's always a reason that I look forward to every single match. Like I said, am I super pumped for the Jericho Appreciation Society? Absolutely not, but I'm happy to see Wheeler Yuta come back. And I always like seeing Eddie, so I mean, there it is right there. But yeah, overall, it's going to be a really good show. I can't wait to watch it. I will be wearing my House of Black shirt for obvious reasons. Um, will Hookhausen get a team blimp soon?
That'd be sweet.
Danhausen wants his blimp, so they keep winning, they might make the monies, and it might happen. So
That'd be sweet. Could you imagine a Goodyear blimp going around the arena, but it's a Danhausen blimp?
oh my god, could you? Yeah, blimp with Danhausen's face all over it. Oh my god, I would love that actually. Um, yeah. So yeah, I think they keep winning the matches, making the monies, and Danhausen will finally get his blimp. I think one day. So we're gonna go to questions we got yesterday, and we have a couple. So we're gonna stay with Jack because he asked a couple. So Jack, thank you for all of your questions. We appreciate it, and I think in general we should just thank our listeners for being patient.
Yes,
We do appreciate
definitely,
it.
for sure.
And continuing to send the questions in, even though we didn't get to them right away, we still were obviously able to keep answering these. So his first question for this week is something that we have honestly questioned ourselves a little bit ago. Why do we have to go through another Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match?
Well, that's what I asked earlier in the show. It's why do they keep hitting this button?
Because they have nothing else good enough to replace it. That's all I
They
got.
have a problem where they can't build up new stars. That's it.
Yes, yeah, that's literally it. And they just go back to old reliable, even though old reliable is maybe reliable, but not worth it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. Okay, so we can actually have a definitive answer on this one. With reports of Sasha being released, what do we think she's going to do next? Is she going to go to Hollywood, go to Stardom, or AEW?
I hope that she goes to Hollywood and
Yeah,
gets away from wrestling for a little bit because
yeah.
I think wrestling's not doing her any favors.
No, and I mean, if they do, well, they are doing another season of The Mandalorian. She can do more stuff on there. I would think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Just I'll have to watch The Mandalorian to see it. I'm a little bit. I have Disney Plus now though, so I can actually watch these things. So
Oh, okay.
I know. I've been on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series right now. So once that's over this week, I'm sure I'll catch up on more Star Wars stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see her in more of that stuff because she can do it. She's not
Yeah.
terrible at it. So yeah, I think I agree. I feel like with all of this kind of thing, and like all these things going on, she does kind of, I think, need to step away for a little bit. Kind of like when she stepped away the first time, she kind of like took the mental health. She came back and she was probably better than she ever was.
Mm.
It's just a shame that WWE didn't learn their lessons. So yeah, I think she could use a little bit of a break from wrestling because sometimes you love something and you don't get a break from it, you're gonna end up hating it. So
Yeah.
a break's
You
always nice.
need to step away from things you love every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree on that one. What's happened to Wardlow's momentum? Was it the MJF stuff or the Smart Mark feud or a combination of both? I think it was more the Smart Mark stuff. I think
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think the Smart Mark stuff is up to par with the MJF stuff.
no, no,
So you know,
because it's comedy
that's my
stuff. It's
own
like
thing is that it's just not up to par with the MJF stuff. The MJF
no.
stuff was a good story. Mark Sterling stuff is kind of just like, ugh.
I mean, the MJF stuff was good. Granted, we've seen it repeatedly already, but besides the point, it's like what the third time we've seen it, but hey, whatever. It was still somewhat entertaining, even though we're like, yeah, we've seen this already. But I think it was more the Smart Mark stuff because anything with Smart Mark Sterling's kind of like comedy stuff, and Wardlow shouldn't be in a comedy role because that's not him at all. So, like a 20 on one handicap elimination match, like really, why did we need to see that? Like
That was kind of just a clusterfuck.
it really was. It really was. I'm like, I'm not sure why we needed this. You could have, oh, here's a wild idea. You could have put another women's segment on the show instead of that. Because did anyone actually think he was going to lose that match? Like, come on. It's like, what does he need to do more than he's already done? We all know he's powerful and strong and on a wave of momentum. So I don't know why he had to beat up just 20 like nobody. So yeah, I think it's more the Smart Mark stuff. Preferably he goes towards Scorpio Sky sooner rather than later, but hopefully that doesn't go downhill because we've seen how messy that stuff can get. So who knows? I hope it doesn't torpedo his momentum further because I've said it before. Any feud that Dan Lambert's a part of, it never is usually my favorite. So maybe this will
Yeah,
prove
you're
me
not
wrong.
big on Dan Lambert.
I'm really not, but maybe they'll prove me wrong this time. Maybe I'll actually thoroughly enjoy this, but I don't know. He, Jack is still wondering about the Hookhausen blips. It's gotta
Everybody
happen.
wants to know about the blimps.
It's gotta happen. I mean, it's gotta happen sooner rather than later. Wouldn't that be something if it was like they just filmed like a promo or something on a blimp, or like just had a blimp somewhere? I
Oh my God. Let's not give them any ideas. We don't know if they're listening.
that would be that would be like the when like Hook finally fully embraces Danhausen as his like tag team partner. That would be his gift to him as the blimp. I would love that. That would be great. But until then, they got their sweet new rides, so there's that. But
I like the sweet new rides.
I do too. But hopefully, the next thing is the blimp. All right. So those are all of Jack's questions. So Jack, thank you. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Jack.
And our last is not a question, it's more or less a comment, but we can still definitely talk about it because believe it or not, this is the one thing we haven't talked about today. Came from Mom. So Mom, thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. She said, finally, the Christian Cage heel turn, and it was so good.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. I knew something was gonna happen with this angle. I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't expect it to be Christian Cage turning on Jungle Boy. I honestly thought Jungle Boy was gonna be the one turning on Luchasaurus.
No, believe it or not, I knew it was one of those things where I knew Christian Cage was going to turn on him. I just didn't know when because I remember I don't even remember how many weeks ago because again, AEW does this thing where we're going to drop the little nugget here and then we're going to forget it ever really happened and then when it actually does happen, anybody who's been paying attention really is going to be like, "Oh, I remember when he said that." Christian Cage said in some backstage promo, basically called Jungle Boy a loser because they've been kind of like losing or just weren't like focused or whatever. And he's like, well, you got to stop being like a loser or something. I don't really remember the full verbatim quote, but I'm
Mhm.
like, all right, he's gonna turn on him sooner rather than later. And they kind of like held off from it for a little bit, as they do, which I appreciate. I appreciate they don't just like hint at it and then immediately act on it. They make you sit on it for a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
so I had a feeling if the Young Bucks were going to win those titles, I'm like, I knew this was going to happen, and it did. And I and then they had to keep going and add salt to the wound of Jungle Boy's mother and sister being there, and
Yeah, that was crazy.
and Christian. I feel like they both were legitimately mad, which I'm like, hey, I guess I would be too, because it's only my like family member or whatever, and I still loved how Christian went. Yeah, you raised a piece of shit. Like, all right, I'm like, all right, we're gonna go there, I guess, but this now means we're gonna get a Jungle Boy Christian Cage match, and I am excited for that one.
That's going to be a good match.
That's gonna be so good. That's gonna be really good. So yeah, I'm excited for that one. So we'll see. Are we gonna see it soon? Probably not. Maybe I wouldn't say maybe not the next pay per view, but we will see it in the coming weeks. I think on Dynamite or Rampage, preferably Dynamite, but we'll see. But we'll be seeing it, and it's gonna be really good.
Yeah, I agree.
And I believe we actually that is it. I think that's all the questions we have. So
Wow.
all of
We
them.
are we better not take another 3-week hiatus again.
Yeah, no, we don't. We don't need to do that. Well, hopefully we won't have that problem because I feel like unless I'm, totally forgetting something I'm doing on Saturday, we should be able to record for the Forbidden Door pay per view on Saturday, so we can do our predictions.
Nice, nice. Well, uh it's best to tell the people how they can get in touch with us and let them know how they can send in their questions.
Yes.
The best way to do so is to reach us on social media. We're available on Instagram and Twitter at the same handle at Ringside Rundown. And every week when we do an episode, the day before the episode, I drop a tweet asking you guys to submit your questions, comments, opinions, rants, anything you want us to talk about during the mailbag segment of the show. You
Mhm.
submit it through that tweet, and we get it on the air for you. Also, where can you find this podcast? It's available all across the board on the internet, wherever you listen to your podcast. It should be available on your favorite platform by searching Ringside Rundown. It's available on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Radio Public. Wherever you listen to podcasts, Ringside Rundown is available. If you cannot find it, you can find me on Twitter. Go to the Ringside Rundown handle, say, hey, I need a link to listen to the episode, and I will send you a link personally.
Yeah.
And if you want to get in touch with me personally, you can reach me on Twitter at Wrestling Chron. That's Wrestling CHRON, and we can talk about wrestling there. Shay, where can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Shailene Hickson21. Usually I'm just talking about, I don't know, whatever I feel like talking about that day. So could be Star Wars, could be sports, could be music, could be drag, most likely drag, but I do occasionally throw some wrestling opinions in there here and there, and I will be sharing my article that I'm in currently in the works right now. Eventually, maybe like I said, by the end of the week, hopefully I should have that done. But just keep watching, you'll see.
Make sure you give her a follow.
And give Erik a follow too.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, well, I guess that's the end of the episode. We promise, hopefully, with no technology issues barring, we should be back Saturday with another episode. This episode is actually going to drop on Monday. It is
Yeah.
Sunday night,
Yeah.
12 after 10 p.m. So it is late. So we will drop this episode on Monday. But the next episode should drop, if we record on Saturday, it should drop on Sunday.
Yes.
All right. So for Shay Hickson, my name is Erik Vasquez, and we'll see you next week.
See you later, guys.